So with that, I'm going to turn it over to David and let David begin here, and then we'll start the program.
Thank you, Julie. It looks like we have a nice crowd of 22 cameras are on tonight for a program that, for me personally, I don't know a lot about the Carnival Glass that Cambridge made. I know many companies made it, so I'm not sharing any glass this evening, but I'm looking forward to learning as much as I can from Les tonight. And I think that's probably the same position that a lot of us are in. We know Cambridge made Carnival Glass. It does exist. It's in the museum, but it's not something that's easily collected. So I look forward to hearing what Les has to say this evening. And again, I just want to welcome everyone tonight, and I hope you have a lot of questions for Les once he's finished with his program. So that's all I have for now. Julia, we'll talk about the August program at the end.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, David.
You're welcome.
So Les, we're ready to learn because
Okay, here we
most of
go.
us are, most of us are newbies when it comes to this topic.
Yeah, and it is really a niche market, and we discussed that if it's a topic that should be covered. Well, it is a part of the Cambridge line, very briefly, not for very long. And there's curiosity about it, but we love these programs to involve a lot of sharing, and we're probably not going to have a lot of that tonight. Usually the program up front is only about 20 minutes to provide a lot of time for people to share examples that they have in their collections. So if when I was teaching at the university, I would be asking the question, which three areas of Cambridge glass have completely separate collector groups? And because you're muted, I'll answer the question. The first one is the candy container group.
Oh.
And Frank Wallenhop is our expert on the candy containers and has spoken about them often. There's a candy container collection club, and they have different names for some of the things than the names that Cambridge used. The second one is the perfume bottles and atomizers, and Linda Roberts gave a couple programs recently on that. That's huge. And there's an International Perfume Bottle Association. Those conventions are huge. They're probably not as big as Bottoms Up, from what I've heard, but they're huge, and they have them at major convention centers. So that's a huge collecting area. They I think do a pretty good job of using the manufacturer's names. So for the Cambridge contribution, they use our Cambridge color names and the decorates, the etchings or the gold incrustations that are done, or silver, on those items. So that's the second one. And then the third one is Carnival Glass. So Carnival Glass has another huge group, the American Carnival Glass Association. It's extremely large, and they they are willing to spend huge dollars on pieces of glasses for their collections. Just huge dollars for the items that are more obscure. I mean, in Cambridge glass, it depends on what the buyer is willing to pay, but if, a $10,000 item probably kind of has always historically kind of topped the list, and that's pushing it. Well, these Carnival Glass collectors, you can go 3 times that on individual pieces. Now, one thing that's happened, of course, with eBay and other internet outlets and auctions, we've kind of found out how unusual some pieces really are. So it's brought down the price of especially the more common pieces. But Cambridge Carnival Glass is regarded as very high quality by the Carnival Glass collectors. There's not a huge number of patterns for the Cambridge glass lines, but man, there's hundreds of different names for Carnival Glass patterns. Some of those lines may only have 1 or 2 items, but they have unique names. They do not use numbers. And for many of you, it's maybe a frustration. Some people are good at remembering numbers and like sharing numbers. I remember my first convention in 1992 in Cambridge, Ohio. Some people were throwing around these numbers, and it was like, oh no, I'm not going to have to memorize all these numbers, am I? And people assure, no, 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 you don't have to do that. But Cambridge, on many things, only provided a number and not a name, and for some of their lines as well. The Carnival Glass people weren't that way, but they kind of preceded the research that was done by NCC, so they have different names for quite a few things, and some of those names have crept into our Cambridge culture. So what is Carnival Glass? This, I'll show a piece. It's a glass with an iridescent finish on the outside. It's applied after the item has come out of the mold. It's sprayed with a metallic salt solution and fired on. Now, this firing, as far as after it's come out of the mold, a lot of us think that, it's like put back into the furnace or something through what they called the glory hole. Well, they didn't always do something like that. And even for making selenium ruby, which is carmine, for some, we assume they just set it on a turntable and then had gas jets firing it to refire it. To actually stick it back in the furnace would be rather severe. So I'm not sure exactly how Cambridge and these other companies refired this a metallic salt onto the piece so it would affix to the glass, but it did require a refiring of some sort. Carnival Glass was made predominantly from 1905 to 1930. And most of it was made just during a 10-year period from about 1908 to 1917. It was a national crave among for decorating in homes. You know how crazes happen. You got to have it. So it was extraordinarily popular for about a 10-year period of time. So it's like, so why did it kind of go out of favor, there in the late 19 teens? Well, there were a few things going on in the world, like World War I was going on from 1914 to 1918. And then during COVID, we learned about that Spanish flu. That hit in 1918. So people weren't probably entertaining as much because it played out very much like COVID, that Spanish flu pandemic. So that might have contributed. The other thing is this iridescent. It sounds a lot to me like, or can get confused with irradiate, which is a whole different thing. Iridescent is this external shine. Irradiate means exposing glass to radiation, so it becomes a different color. So sun-colored glass, that's radiation, the sun. And of course, now they've learned how to really do extreme irradiation to make glass purple or brown or one thing or another. So I think it was maybe Bill that mentioned manufacturers. The major manufacturers of Carnival were Fenton, and I think they were the first out the door in 1907. They were #1 for volume produced. So I do participate online with Carnival Glass auctions, and there's a lot of Fenton, and they're #1 easily. Of course, they're Williamstown, West Virginia, just straight down 77 from Cambridge, not that far away. And the other one that's very famous is Millersburg. And Millersburg, Ohio, is located about 60 miles northwest of Cambridge. And that organization, that factory, was led by John Fenton. So Fenton was originally started by Frank and John Fenton, and they didn't get along at all. So John packed up and created his own factory, which was Millersburg. And they were saying it was a good thing those two brothers didn't get along because, boy, Millersburg made great Carnival glass. So that started in about 1909. Northwood is another one you probably heard about. Very high quality glass. They're at Wheeling, West Virginia, started in about 1908 with their Carnival. Imperial, as was mentioned, 1909. Again, quite high quality Carnival glass as far as iridescence. Dugan is the other one. Not quite as good as Millersburg in quality, but it's out there. Not as much of it. It came later in 1913. And then they say the lesser companies, and Cambridge is the top of the list for the lesser companies by volume that made Carnival Glass. And the references that I was able to find for Cambridge was that they did make some very early in 1908, but almost all of it, especially in the colors, as far as colored blanks, was in 1916 and 1917. There's some evidence there was a return a bit in the 20s. I'm not sure about that, but it was overwhelmingly 1916 to 1917, just as the craze was kind of coming to an end. So the colors. I showed you this piece before. This is, it started out as just a crystal blank, and it's feather, the pattern. And they applied these salts, and the color it was called, after it was got the iridescence, is called marigold. So marigold is one of the key colors of Carnival Glass, and it's completely due to the metallic salts that were applied. The other one, the next one, at least for Cambridge, was green, and what was used was our 1916 emerald. Well, see, that's 1916 before it came out. We often call it either 1916 emerald or early dark emerald. 1916 mulberry, which we sometimes call early mulberry. And for Carnival Glass collections, that's called purple. And the other color that Cambridge used, blank, for Carnival Glass was 1916 royal blue or early royal blue. And among Carnival Glass collectors, they just call it blue. So the colors for Carnival Glass collectors for glass made by Cambridge are marigold, green, purple, and blue. They don't use our color names. They have their own system. Again, 1908, if Cambridge did produce some in 1908, based on the colors we've seen and are available, it would have had to have been on crystal and therefore marigold. So we'll go through the patterns. I've got 12 pieces here from my collection that we'll go through. And it's easier to relate to things if you can see an example. So the Cambridge line called Feather was used, and this piece is called a Sunday by Cambridge. Feather came out in 1907, so if Cambridge was making Carnival in 1908, it could have been Feather, it could have been this particular piece. It's ruffled on top. Cambridge called it a Sunday. It appears only in marigold. It hasn't, that we're aware of, it hasn't popped up in other colors. But Cambridge Glass collectors called this a parfait. Completely different name for the piece. Also, Cambridge collectors, this line, Cambridge Company called it Feather. Well, it turns out Northwood has a line called Feather. So Carnival Glass collectors called this inverted feather. Now, we'll get into the strawberry and the thistle and the inverted stuff, but Cambridge people don't ever call this inverted feather. It's just feather. Can you see it there? The pattern, the feather, pressed glass, near cut era glass. The unusual thing about this, I don't know if I know another piece of Carnival Glass that has a stem and base that are just left crystal. Generally, the whole piece, except maybe the underside, has gotten the Carnival treatment. But this parfait, or Cambridge says Sunday, did not do the stem and foot. It's a press piece and only did the bowl. So that is one piece in feather. Now, this piece, I hope you don't go gaga and think that, oh my gosh, that's a piece of Carnival Glass from Cambridge. I should go pay a lot of dollars for it. NCC doesn't provide prices, but I don't think it hurts to give you a little history that I bought and sold a lot of these for about $165. They're all over on the internet. They're everywhere on the internet. So I think, probably a going rate now is probably about $35. They just made so many of them. We don't know why. It must have been popular, or they wouldn't have made a real large number of them. The other example in feather, another piece that I've had before and sold, is this cracker jar. Both Cambridge and Carnival Glass collectors call this a cracker jar. It's in the feather pattern or inverted feather for Carnival Glass collectors. It's got the green base, it was green glass, the 1916 emerald. This piece has beautiful iridescence, just beautiful iridescence, a deep color. And again, you can kind of see, I think, that this is kind of neat. Cambridge's Carnival Glass was well done. Now, this piece, I would say, is the second most common. Why they happen to make this cracker jar in abundance, I don't know. Now, I've had this different times and sold it, at the glass show and stuff, but I just bought this online for $79. They're that common. They're everywhere. But if you want a piece of Carnival Glass made by Cambridge, it would be a beautiful piece that's probably not going to cost you a tremendous amount of money to have in your collection. Another piece that's fairly difficult to find in feather by Cambridge is the punch bowl. There's not many of those. I recently got a feather punch bowl in marigold. The top and the base is kind of big. I'm not going to show it here. There's not many of them, but they came in both green and in marigold. But this is you could say, the punch cup that goes with the punch bowl. And some of these came with the one that I purchased. It's the feather pattern. But Cambridge didn't call this a punch cup. They called it a custard. And Carnival collectors just call it a cup. But it's the marigold. This one's kind of got a deep, probably a little more metallic salt was applied. It's a little deeper colored than some marigold, but it is marigold. It's a crystal base color with the metallic salts applied and fired on. Another line, kind of in chronological order, I think, is a line that's just got a number by Cambridge, but Carnival collectors call it near cut souvenir because there's 3 items in this line. They all have near cut on the bottom inside of the piece. There's only 3 pieces. This is one of the 3 pieces. And they say near cut souvenir because often they have a town. So this is things, these carnivals or whatever that went to communities and they put towns on it. Now this one says Grantsburg, Wisconsin. And I kind of like that because they've got my favorite half marathon that I used to enjoy running the most over the years. It's just across the border in Wisconsin, a beautiful little community. Had to run some on some gravel roads. That was the only thing I didn't like. But this is called the 4-ounce mug by Cambridge. It was just a mug for Carnival Glass collectors. They also have an 8-ounce tumbler and an individual cream pitcher. And those are the ones that you find in souvenirs. Now, these only appear in marigold as well. So it could be if Cambridge was making Carnival in 1908, it may have been these souvenir pieces to get things going. And these are plentiful when you go to antique shows. So they were making quite a few of them. The next one is the line called Wheat Sheaf by Cambridge. The Carnival Glass collectors never use that because the only piece that I'm aware of that they made in Carnival was this piece, which Cambridge called either tall decanter or cologne. And the Carnival Glass collectors call this a unique line cologne bottle. Now this is in green, and it's often hard to find the stopper, but this is kind of a neat piece. Now, it's from a mold. We say Carnival Glass is pressed glass. Well, this would have been, blown into a mold. So it's a little bit cheating. It's not completely pressed, with a mold with a plunger. But the iridescence is incredible. The color is beautiful. And of these colognes, these are fairly common in crystal. It was a regular near cut piece. It's harder to find in marigold, but I've got one of those here for you. And these make a really nice pair in a display case on either side. And it's neat when you got the stopper that matches and correct in good condition. In this case, I think the green probably is a little more striking than marigold. I have to admit, generally speaking, I prefer marigold over green. Green is probably my least favorite of the primary and secondary colors, so that's the personal preference. Moving on, the next one is this little thing. By the way, those clones complete with the stopper are not easy to find and bring pretty good value. This little guy pops up, usually missing the stopper. And this is from the Cambridge Buzzsaw line. But Carnival Glass collectors, everything else in the Buzzsaw line, they called double star. But they called this the Buzzsaw Cruet. And it comes in two sizes, the 4-ounce and the 6-ounce. And this little one, I've never seen it in marigold. I'm not sure if it is. The larger one, the 6-ounce size, is definitely both marigold and green. But again, beautiful pattern, and the pattern on the near cut really stands out when you provide that carnival treatment on top of it. Now, I don't have an example, but the water sets in Buzzsaw or Double Star are really gorgeous. And, the matching tumblers, they're just beautiful for display. So rather breathtaking. Moving on then, the next one we'll talk about is the Cambridge line Strawberry. And this is a vase. I don't think this is a regular production piece. I haven't noticed it in any of the catalogs. It's a flared vase, and that's what I think Cambridge has referred to it as in its reference materials. This is green with the iridescent finish applied. The Carnival Glass collectors call this the lady's spittoon. And they are not at all common. And they're I think, just a really neat display piece. So if you want some Carnival Glass for your collection, these lady spittoons or flared vases, depending on your preference, I think would be kind of a cool addition. They are signed near cut on the bottom of the inside. I don't know if you can see it there. And they come in both green and marigold. So this would be the marigold, it's the crystal blank. But with the treatment on top, it's got a whole different look than what it started as just plain crystal glass. Now, supposedly, this also appears in purple. And wouldn't that be something special? I have never seen one, but the books say there's at least one or two out there of this piece in purple. Moving on, probably after that parfait or sundae and that cracker jar, this may be the next most common piece in Cambridge in Strawberry. And it's the Cambridge people, Cambridge factory referred to this as a puff box. And the Carnival Glass collectors referred to it as a powder jar, so pretty similarly. Now, I said strawberry. What do a lot of people call this? Inverted strawberry, right? And that was never used by Cambridge. Inverted strawberry is what the Cambridge or the Carnival Glass collectors called it. And why did they say inverted strawberry? Because Millersburg and Northwood had other strawberry patterns. So to distinguish this, they called it inverted strawberry, which you could say it is, right? But therefore, it's kind of crept into Cambridge culture that we also refer to it as inverted strawberry rather than just strawberry. So the Cambridge name was strawberry, just a technicality. And this is also in green. I've had it. I haven't kept an example of it. Oops. Then moving on, a sister line that came out the same time by Cambridge in 1911 is called Thistle. Now, I don't like thistles. I much prefer strawberries as plants over thistles. But the pieces are pretty spectacular. So this is purple. So it's that mulberry base. I just acquired this. It's the mulberry base, purple glass with the iridescent finish on top. I just think it's gorgeous. And it's showing up here just kind of dark, it looks like, but in person, it just is spectacular as far as the iridescence shining off of it. The bottom of these pieces that are pressed, you can see that there's no iridescent finish. That's why I wonder if they just didn't put it on a turntable to refire it. But you can tell the color for these heavy press pieces by the base color by just looking at the bottom. Now, ironically, we're not aware that this picture was ever made in green, but it's made in marigold, and it's really rare in marigold. So at the last Carnival Glass collection, the auction, I tried very hard, but even I have my limits on a piece that I want badly. The Carnival Glass people are just nuts on what they'll pay for something. It seems like the sky's unlimited for Carnival Glass collectors. Now, this piece is more common than the marigold. They are out there, but it's kind of nice with Carnival Glass if you can inspect it personally, because there is a difference piece to piece on the iridescence and the quality of it. Moving right along here, moving on to the 12th piece, the final piece I've got to show. And this piece only has a number by Cambridge. It's a near cut line. It's very large. It's a 10-inch vase, and both Carnival Glass collectors and Cambridge collectors refer to it as a 10-inch vase. But Carnival Glass collectors have a name. This is Venetian. How cool. This is Venetian, the pattern. And actually, this blank in crystal was the base for a lamp, one of the near-cut era lamps. And I was told by Lynn Welker that another company had a similar shaped blank, and they competed with each other, and that's maybe why Cambridge introduced this former lamp base as a vase in their Carnival Glass line. Now, this appears both in marigold and green, just the two colors that we're aware of. And it's actually harder to find in marigold. And I have it in marigold and I don't have it in green. This popped up at an auction and I couldn't resist it. So usually for these presentations or gatherings, people want to know about reproductions. And if you're, thinking about acquiring some Carnival Glass, that's important. I will not touch the tumblers. I just don't go there, because there were so many made by the Guernsey Glass Company, Harold Bennett, and he used the original mold, left the near cut in it. So I'm talking like non-Carnival, that it's just hard to be knowledgeable on what's Cambridge and what's Guernsey. And he also then reproduced, or he reissued the strawberry line heavily, Guernsey Glass, and he used different molds, new molds. A lot of the strawberry by the Guernsey Glass Company by Harold Bennett, same thing, kind of has the shape of the thistle line by Cambridge, but it's inverted strawberry. And it's not old, it's getting older now because Harold's been gone a while, but it's not authentic original. So inverted strawberry is the one you need to worry the most about as far as reproductions or reissues. Like I say, I'm just not knowledgeable on the tumblers, and I suppose if you had a double star pitcher jug, of course Cambridge used jug, most everybody else uses pitcher, and it had tumblers that came with it that seemed right, it would be okay. The other thing is there is some red glass now with Carnival on it. Well, would that be from the 1916 to 17 era? No, because selenium ruby wasn't introduced, which is what Carmen is that needs to be refired, wasn't discovered or became usable or knowable until the late 20s or early 30s. For Cambridge, 1931, but others were introducing it in the late 1920s. So if you've got red Carnival Glass, it's not old. Now, Mosser, I don't know, the ones that went on the tour, if any of you saw them applying at Mosser, they still do Carnival treatment. And I don't know if they talked about it during the tours. So they did, okay. So, I mean, there's new Carnival Glass being made. It's not that it was only made during that era. So that's another clue. If it's red, no, it's probably not old. And nothing wrong with new glass, but it wouldn't be anything that's old. So that's what I've got. How did I do on time? I went a half hour.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Les. I'm sorry I missed some of that. My computer decided to reboot in the middle of Zoom today,
Oh,
which is never a good thing when they want to do an update as well. So I don't know why it just decided to reboot itself. So I missed some of this, but I do have a few questions. You probably went over it, but for my edification, which colors were most, I know you probably went through the colors, but what colors are the rarest in the
yeah.
carnival that is made by Cambridge?
Yeah, thank you. That was something I glossed over, Julie, so thank you. The blue.
The
There are
blue.
there are very few pieces known. But be careful on that because Guernsey made blue tumblers with carnival finish, I
Okay.
believe. So just because it's blue carnival, don't be careful, do your research to be sure. But there's just very little blue from Cambridge. Other companies, there's all kinds of and different kinds of blue. But
Right.
for Cambridge, it's hard to find a piece of blue.
Now we most commonly see the green. That seems to be the one I see the most of.
Green or marigold, yep.
Green or marigold. What differentiates, like a lot of people will say, well, this has good color or this has good this. What are the attributes that we're really looking for when we start looking for a good quality piece of this type of glass?
Yeah, another really good question. The it's the iridescence, and the sophisticated collectors really grade essentially the iridescence. They want it to be, to have kind of a multicolor appearance, the iridescence itself. The other thing, the Cadillac version of iridescence that was applied to Carnival glass was done by Millersburg, and it was called radium. So I don't know if it had radium in it or not, but it was called radium. And the so yeah, there's different qualities, and Cambridge of the lesser companies was the one that had the highest quality. There's some conjecture that most, if not all, Cambridge Carnival was actually done at Millersburg.
Mm.
So the blanks were taken to Millersburg. Again, it's less than 60 miles from Cambridge, and the treatment was done there. Now, Cambridge advertisement advertised it, so it would have come back to Cambridge after the treatment. So it's something we don't know because we don't have documentation of what they were doing in the factory way back
Okay.
in 1916 and 17. But the quality is similar to that of Millersburg. So it's good carnival. It's prized by the carnival collectors, unless it's run of the mill, like the parfait and or Sunday and the Cracker Jar. They must have been just tremendously popular. They sold a ton of them, so they're not hard to find at all today.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions for Les?
I do,
Christine?
if you have a minute.
Okay, Lyle, then we'll put Christine for her next question.
I was just wondering if there's a wear factor to this iridescence. It's indicated it was a spray-on factor and then heated, and I'm assuming there's some great adherence to the glass itself. But is it like Charlton Gold just going to come off?
Nothing comes off as easy as Charlton Gold.
Truth.
I think like a lot of that gold that's the trim, it's just from dusting it, wiping it on a daily basis that it'll come off. Lyle, it does not appear to be an issue with wear with Carnival glass.
Really?
I've never read that anywhere. And the nice thing I like about it, some of the more prized pieces I have in my cases, but other pieces I have setting out because they're nice decorative pieces. I've grown very fond of it. Maybe you can tell that. I hated it when I was younger. My mother had a single piece in our farmhouse. And up until I was about 9 years old, I was dusting weekly because it was a farmhouse with a gravel road, a gravel driveway, and haying and everything out in the front yard. So we had to dust every week. And I hated the looks of that thing because it had kind of grooves in it, so it was hard to dust. So I came into this with a very bad attitude about Carnival Glass. But once you appreciate the shapes of Cambridge glass and then you find this finish on top of the near cut, I'm not a big fan of just plain old crystal near cut. And some people are. Freeman Moore, I think, is a big collector. You know, everybody's got their fan base. But boy, you put this iridescent finish on it. It's pretty spectacular. Again, I really like the marigold, just the plain color, as well as the purple.
Did
And
they
I
ever
just haven't been
irid
able, I have never seen a piece of blue Carnival, Cambridge Carnival.
did they ever iridize a crystal piece?
That's what it is. The marigold
I mean that the color comes with it?
well, it's just a crystal blank, a crystal piece of near cut that they apply the metallic salts fired on it becomes marigold.
Hmm.
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 Okay. Excellent questions, Lyle. Christine, you had a question?
I have a couple of things. First of all, wouldn't it have been awesome if they would done the daisy with that? That would have been so
Yeah.
cool. That is of course, my favorite near cut.
Archfoot daisy.
Archfoot daisy.
I
Yeah,
love it too.
my
Yeah.
favorite. Second of all, just when I was going through the Mosser tour, they were doing the treatment on a pink candy jar, and it was rather large candy jar. So just to kind of share that when we were there. And then I did have a question. I was just curious on the marigold piece, the first one that you were showing. Did they do the treatment on the inside too, that it got such good color?
The treatment is done on the outside.
Only on the outside. Okay.
Mhm.
Interesting. Okay, thank
But
you.
when you look through the piece, of course, it's there, so it looks like it's maybe on both sides,
Right.
but it's just the one side. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
And
Thank you.
usually not on the bottom. Now this piece, you know, they didn't, for some reason they didn't do the stem and foot, but generally the bottom is not done. So that piece at Fenton, did you see them apply the metallic
Yeah.
salt?
Oh yeah.
And then how did they fire it on? Did they show that?
They heated it. They were
How?
doing heat.
How?
They had put it, so they moved it from they had three different spots they did it. First, they did it in the mold, then they put the treatment on, and
Yep.
then they had this big kind of like an oven where it was rotating
Yeah.
around.
Yeah.
And then they took the pieces off after a certain amount of time and they put them in another big, I don't know what it was called, but it was basically to allow it to slowly cool down on
Exactly.
the third one.
Yeah.
So they were heating it on that
Yeah,
big
it has to
round
be
thing.
reheated. Yeah, it has to be
Yeah.
reheated. But it's not like it's going back into a furnace.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
No, you
that's
didn't.
why.
I did not see
Yeah.
them put it back in a furnace.
Right.
Did they heat it with some of the fire? Yes, they did.
Yeah. Yep. That fits.
Yes.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, they called that a fire polisher.
Yeah,
But-
sure.
No, thank you.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you. David's next with a question, please. Unmute, please,
Thank
David.
you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Just one point and then a couple questions. There is a royal blue strawberry spooner, I believe, in the museum.
He is there. Okay.
And I believe Lynn said that that's the only piece he's ever seen in royal
Yeah,
blue as
it's
well.
just Garris's hen's teeth. Yep.
The other questions I had, one, the term carnival. Was this glass initially given away at carnivals? Was it a prize that people could win? Why did they have the name Carnival Glass?
Yeah, that's a good question. To my knowledge, no, David, that it wasn't a gift, but like those souvenirs, I mean, that kind of was. So it might have been that was a factor. I'm not sure. And my reference books didn't comment on that at all.
Okay.
You youngsters just tear me up. You know that. You go into any Ohio station, the guy come out and fill your tank and wash your window and offer you a chance to buy a piece of glass for another 2 gallons of gas if you'll buy that. And that was usually of the carnival nature.
Was it?
And it was hundreds of pieces of it
Yeah.
floating around from gas stations.
Oh, I
Huh.
didn't know that. I just remember going to the fair and pitching the washers into the glassware. And if you landed on the glass or you got it on something like that and it stayed, you got that piece of glass to take home.
Absolutely. Cedar Point was famous for that on the
Yeah.
sidebar carnies. Yeah.
So yeah, that's a very interesting question.
It
Where
is,
did
and
this?
I don't know. And again, carnival, we often hear about a carnival of colors and one thing or that. So it could just be that the iridescence, they applied the carnival name, but there could be a relationship to carnivals. I'm not sure.
And my last question is it the same treatment on the glass no matter what the color of the base is?
I can't swear to that either. It's a metallic finish. I believe it's the same.
Because it's really unique on the thistle picture. Now, granted, it was mulberry.
Yes.
The iridized looks a little different than it does on a crystal piece. I mean, it looks, now I know you're not going to get orange on a purple or a green piece, but it's just the way the reflections or whatever you call that, the color that you see, that iridized color is so much richer on the colored pieces, where it's just orange on a crystal piece. I thought there just might be two different finishes based upon the color of the base glass.
I don't think so, David. And my reference is the Standard Encyclopedia on Carnival Glass by Bill Edwards. It's an excellent book. And it covers so much about Carnival Glass, and it makes no mention of a different formula for the metallic salts.
Oh,
that doesn't mean that there couldn't have been.
All right. Well, thank you.
All right.
I have a question, Julie.
Okay, cool. You're on deck. I've got one before you. Mike's next, and then you're on deck, Jeff.
Okay.
Thanks, Julie. Before I get to my serious question, Lyle pitched a softball that I just got to hit. So, Lyle, when you were done getting gas, did they crank your car to get it going again? I'm glad he's on mute. Anyway, Les, seeing that you have 12 pieces of Carnival.
Well, I got more than that, but that's what I showed tonight.
Okay, well, you've got to be a major Carnival collector, because I've been collecting a long time, and I can't say that I've seen 50 pieces in my lifetime.
Oh, I think you've been overlooking quite a few, Mike. You've been just focused on the royal blue and not paid attention. If you haven't seen hundreds of those Sundays over the years, you've been.
Well, I have seen the Sundays. The Sundays, I saw the first one at auction that you paid $165 for. But I have seen a lot of those. So my question is this: are there a lot of you guys that collect Carnival?
Oh, it's a huge
in Cambridge, just in Cambridge.
Not in Cambridge, no.
Okay.
No.
So
it's a hard thing to collect because there's not a lot of it. There's not a lot of lines. I mean, I tried to show a pretty good variety. There are a few other lines that Cambridge did Carnival on that I didn't have examples to share, but it's not extensive.
Well,
my gosh, there's hundreds and hundreds of Carnival Glass lines. So for the Carnival Glass collectors.
No, I'm just talking Cambridge now.
Yeah.
I try and stay in my lane here. I see Larry over there. I'm sure he's sandbagging us. I know he must have a bunch. But I was just curious how many of you guys there are that collect Cambridge Carnival.
I think there's a lot of people that have some pieces, but yeah, I don't think there's a lot that focus on Carnival. And I wouldn't say it's the major part of my collection either, but I like having some of it. I think it's cool. I think it's neat. And that cracker jar is going to be for sale at the next NCC Glass show. Because I bought it just for this presentation at $79.
Oh, you're muted, Mike.
I think it's beautiful too. My wife won't let me collect it though.
Okay.
Okay. Jeff had a question. So Jeff, ask away.
Okay. Well, good to see everybody. Glad the convention went well. I didn't make it, but next year I will. My only piece of Carnival is the stretch bottle from the Carnival. So 7-Up bottle. But anyway, My question for Les is the marigold. Is Cambridge the only one that made the marigold?
No.
Okay,
all
because I
made
see a
marigold.
lot of it in my antique
No,
travels.
I'm sure they virtually all made marigold.
Okay.
Now, and there's many other colors across the companies that made Carnival Glass. Cambridge is just the 4 colors. And of course, technically crystal isn't a color, but no, marigold is standard across the industry.
No. Okay. And they all call it marigold?
Yeah, it's marigold. Yeah.
Okay.
And then stretch glass isn't the same thing as Carnival Glass.
No, but you used to get them at the carnivals.
Okay, all right.
You know, the
Yes.
stretch 7-Up or Dr. Pepper bottles.
Yeah, now stretch glass
bottles.
there's a big auction going on here in a couple of weeks on stretch glass. That's a whole nother topic, and Cambridge did not produce stretch glass.
Yeah. No, these are pop bottles that they've stretched.
Sure.
Yeah.
And that's not stretch. Well, that's informal stretch glass.
Yeah. Yeah, but they're cool. You know, I grew up with those. So
Did you really? Okay.
yeah, it's pretty cool.
Is that Rochester?
Yeah. Well, I
Okay.
used to, my grandparents were from Mabel, Minnesota. So we go down to steam engine days and they'd have stretch bottles. You throw the
Really?
rings and you throw the ring over and you get the bottle if you got it on there. And yeah, it's pretty cool.
For the rest of you, Mabel is right on the Iowa border.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions before we go to the show and tell portion? No? Okay, Larry, it's time to shine.
Okay. Thanks, Les. I enjoyed that. Les mentioned high prices. I heard of this and I just looked it up again. In February 2nd, Dexter City, Ohio this year, a world record was set for Carnival Glass. There is a piece that sold for the low price of $250,000 before buyer's premium. So that made it $275,000 after buyer's premium. That's a little bit higher than most of us pay for Cambridge. So anyway.
What color was that one?
What color?
Yes.
It was very unique. I don't know if they said what
I think it was a blue, wasn't it, Larry?
Yeah, it was a blue. Cambridge or Carnival collectors have all kinds of other names like ice blue and peacock blue and all kinds of other things that they put on there as well. We were fortunate when we lived in Kansas. Our neighbor collected Carnival lamps, and wow, there was tens of thousands of dollars that I drooled over. Anyway, on to my meager showing tonight. I actually doubled my collection from what I told you, Julie. Now I have 4 pieces to show. This is the same thing that Les showed. I'm one of the ones that do like numbers. So yeah, we call that buzzsaw, but it's also the 2699 line in Cambridge, for those of you that like that. Les showed the marigold example of the puff box. Here is the green example. Same box, just different color. That's in the strawberry. The early American glass collectors also call it inverted strawberry, so that may be where the name kind of gets started as well. This is one of my favorite pieces as well. These are not terribly hard to find, but this is the strawberry candlestick. They came both in marigold and in the green. I'm not aware of another color, but they're 7 inches tall, which makes
Larry, the problem on them, there's almost always chips on the bottom.
Yeah.
Is yours got some chipping? See, you could hold it up. People could see how it's not a smooth edge, so it would be
Right.
It would chip so easy. I really want a pair, but I'm fussy on condition.
This one is
Pretty good.
Good,
Yeah.
but yeah. And the last piece that I have is in the mulberry, which is pretty difficult to find in a strawberry half-gallon jug. So again, you want to look at the color in the bottom, just as far as is it green, is it crystal, is it mulberry, or is it blue? Carnival Glass collectors like red. Of course, Cambridge didn't make red Carnival Glass, but it's, if you happen to run across normal Carnival in red, you might want to look at that. So we do have several more pieces, but I thought there would be a lot of people with examples tonight, so I didn't dig the rest of them out.
Oh, well,
That's
thank
it,
you for
Julie.
sharing the pieces you have. Very interesting. As you said, there's not a lot of people collecting. Well, there may be that we just don't know about, but again, beautiful pieces. And again, the artistry that we see coming out of Cambridge is always evident to me. Like you said, I looked up that piece that you were talking about, the $250,000 vase. It's called the Millersburg People's Vase. It was blue. There's another People's Vase that sold for $145,000, and it was amethyst. And there's a Morning Glory pitcher in amethyst that sold for $42,000 recently. So yeah, maybe we should start looking a little more at the Carnival Glass that Cambridge made. These were all from Millersburg, obviously. And they had some nice information there. So now, oh, go ahead.
Well, and as far as valuation, so again, Larry's picture there, I mean, it's just, I think it's beautiful. The
Beautiful.
iridescence is incredible, and it really shows beautiful on that mulberry, that they call purple. Now, would you have the same feeling if it was just plain crystal?
No, absolutely not.
That's why the Carnival Glass is special. And again, our business isn't sharing prices, but those types of pieces, the thistle or the strawberry, I mean, we're talking, 500 or more probably. I mean, they get value. And they're gorgeous and they're prized. They're not ultra rare like that piece of Millersburg. It's like a one of a kind that popped up, with the Millersburg finish.
Yes. So now we know that Gwinnell has a piece to share with us that is not Cambridge, but always good for our education, as does Bill. So let's start with Gwinnell.
All right. I believe you would call this the marigold, I'm sorry. And I think it's an imperial dish. And you can see the pattern in the bottom. I don't have a lot of information on it. It's got one handle. It is a closed handle. It was a gift from a friend and I can't get rid of it.
It's marigold. I don't know the manufacturer, but it easily could be imperial. Because they made a fair bit of it too.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. Of course, it looked a little on the caprice side, as we would expect.
Yes, it did. That's why she picked it.
I'm like, come on, it's got to be caprice looking at some sort. We count on that from you. Come on, Gwinnell. Okay, Bill, let's see the few examples that you have for us.
Okay, I just picked up a few of these through the years because they jumped out at me. And the first one, if you can see it, I don't know for sure who made this. It's a basket weave pattern. I looked a little bit on the internet and I saw a couple of examples called Dugan, but I'm not sure. But I thought this is really a nice bowl.
It's a well-known pattern, but Bill, I don't know who made it off the top of my head.
I have a creamer, which I have seen on the internet called Dugan also, and they call it the long thumbprint. I guess because of that long depressed area. It's not as bright as that last one.
It's really interesting, Bill. The names assigned by the Carnival Glass collectors, the names, they don't do any numbers. It's all names. And it really describes the piece. That's how they name the lines. So yeah, like you said on that one, what thumbprint or
long thumbprints.
I mean, that's how they named the collectors assign names, just like our club did the Drape Lady and the Bashful Charlotte. Those weren't company names; they were assigned by NCC collectors.
I have another bowl, which I believe is imperial. It's got kind of like a rippled rib and a little bit of ruffling on the top. And I have a tumbler, which I believe also is imperial, but I'm not positive, and I'm not sure the age of any of these. But these were 4 examples that I got out. I've actually got probably about 10 or 12 pieces. Just I run into them at flea markets or garage sales, a piece here, a piece there, and they just sparkle. So I pick them up.
Ah, nice. Nice, nice. So coming back to a question I have. So a lot of us attended the glass show, and were there, I mean, I walked the glass show several times, but I guess I really wasn't on the hunt for some of this glassware. Was there a lot present at the glass show? I know that, Mike, you were there, and did you
No,
see a
there was
lot less?
no, there was not, Julie. And offhand, I don't know that there was a single piece there this
Okay.
year.
Yeah,
Okay.
Normally, there would be several of those Sundays, and the
Yeah.
crackers were. But I
yeah,
don't.
there were a dozen of the Sundays, but other than that, no, there wasn't. I like I said before, I bet you I haven't seen 50 pieces of it out in the wild, or even
I think there was a puff box there,
Oh, yes, there was. Yes.
marigold.
Yes.
but that's
Okay.
And it was in my booth.
You're supposed to remember that.
Yeah.
that's 1 out of 20,000 pieces that were at the show.
Yeah, not a lot. Well, Sue Cameron has sent me a little message in the chat. Sue, do you want to show your piece now?
I didn't think that about having real carnival glass, but this is one of 4 Sherberts that my mother and daddy had from when they got married in, I believe it was 1934. So I think probably it's imperial. So anyway, it's a cute little thing. And the color is just great. It's really intense marigold. So
And it's got that crystal stem and foot, right?
it does.
Yeah.
Yes, it definitely does. So,
Hmm.
but they sit in a cabinet, so I never think about them. Yeah. Anyway, that's the only thing I have.
Well, thank you. Yeah, the piece that I purchased was a ice cream compote, is what I purchased recently for my father for his Father's Day. So unfortunately, he already has it. Otherwise, I'd show it. But it was the purple color. I can't tell you what pattern it was, but it was a pretty piece. I agree. They have such a sparkle to them that they're very attractive, and you just kind of are drawn to them. So are there any other questions that we have for anyone or any other glass to show this evening?
I can show a piece, Julie.
Okay, great, Doug.
Again, it's not Cambridge, but this particular one, let me change my view so I can see. This particular one, again.
It blurs out.
Yeah.
You'll have to change your screen setting, please. And thank you.
Here. Where's that at?
Under video.
Yeah, your upper right in your photograph, the 3 dots.
Okay, yep. There. Okay. So the story is that my grandmother on the maternal side got this playing bingo at a county fair or carnival. And what's interesting to me is not just that, but the other day I was talking to Les about this upcoming presentation. And I said, well, I only have one piece of non-Cambridge. And I took that off my shelf back here. And suddenly the next day on eBay popped up, suggested for you, this little guy, which is the exact same piece, just ruffled differently. So I'm like, well, how the hell did Facebook know that? Because I don't buy Carnival Glass. But anyway, and this was advertised on eBay as Northwoods.
Yeah, very good. I've seen that pattern around, but yeah.
it's a basket weave pattern and a ruffled edge. So, who knows how much Meta actually does listen and take pictures for videos that are supposed to be off.
More than you think.
Are you
More
now
than
hooked on Northwood?
What was that, Liz?
Are you now hooked on Northwood?
No, I did research though. Now, I did do a little bit of research on Northwood. So Mr. Northwood actually sold the plant to National back in 1902, and
The
then
combine.
yeah, and then went to be the sales guy in the UK for them, and then came back and bought the plant again after that, and that's when he really started making Carnival Glass, and his primary sales outlet was to county fairs, is what I read. So, it all fits with the story of my grandmother.
Mhm.
It's
Oh, well,
sounding like there's a carnival connection.
yeah, thank you. So that brings another question from me, because we know that, Mr. Bennett often traveled to Europe. How much Carnival glass is seen in Europe then, in
There were
comparison to
there
the
were quite a
US?
few companies in Europe as well at the same time period.
Okay,
Yeah, no, it was being made heavily in Europe as well.
okay.
And it
All right.
was, again, it was just this phase. Now, Larry mentioned red. Well, it did go into the, till about 1930, when selenium ruby would have definitely been produced. Prior to selenium ruby that needed to be refired, I mean, it wasn't easy to make red glass. The old stories about gold. Yeah, you could kind of get a cranberry glass by throwing gold in, but that was kind of a pricey mix of glass to use gold. So, but yeah, I mean, definitely into the 20s, some of the companies were still making Carnival glass, but the major fad had shifted. And it could well be the Spanish flu contributed to it, just timing wise.
Okay. All right. Well, I think we've learned a whole lot more about glass tonight. I know I have, certainly. Are there any closing questions for Les or anyone on the meeting tonight? Hearing none, I'm going to turn it back over to David then.
Well, thank you, Les. Very informative. Like I said, I don't know a whole lot about Carnival, but it is certainly it is attractive, and I think as a child I was attracted to that because my grandmother had a couple pretty basic pieces in her china cabinet that kind of caught my eye, that iridized look to the glass. So I think we all learned a lot tonight, and who knows, we might be a little bit more educated, and we might start some collections here this evening as a result of this program. One thing that I forgot to mention the first time I had some questions for Les was I can recall it's probably been 8 years ago, a glass dealer that did our show a couple times and also did the Glass Dash. His name was Paul Berube.
Yeah.
And Paul was really heavy into the Carnival glass. And Rich Bennett brought a buzzsaw tankard in Mulberry to show and tell. And Paul was going all goo-goo over that because it was so unusual to see that particular tankard in Mulberry. 99.9% of the time, the buzzsaw tankard is in green, and it's not super unusual either to find in green. So just like with everything, knowing the nuances about the color differences of what you normally see it in. So for example, the feather sundae in green or mulberry would be something probably super special, even though we're kind of poo-pooing it a little bit in the marigold.
What? There's never been one that surfaced though, David.
Right. I'm just saying that
if one did,
yes, if
holy
one
cow.
did, or it's just the color variations do make a big deal, and I'm not knowledgeable enough to know that, but I know that crystal and green are the most common, and then mulberry is probably third, and royal blue would be at the end. But Paul mentioned that he thought the mulberry buzzsaw tankard would be about $7,000. that's a far cry from what a green one would sell for. So the colored variation does greatly impact pricing on those, which we know that with other things in Cambridge glass, but sometimes you put that Carnival treatment on there, it's not as super easy to see what the base color is. So if it's in a showcase in a mall, it's probably worth, if you're not sure, if it's not obvious, taking that piece out and just double checking the base color of that. So that was it's kind of extreme, but there are some better pieces out there based upon the color. So again, thank you to Les and all he shared. And of course, thank you to everyone who shared glass from their collections tonight as well. Next month, we are going to have a program by Mike Strebler. I hope Mike remembers that he's on for August. He's going to do a program on Cambridge cuttings. It's a big program. He's going to summarize it the best he can, I'm sure, for us in about 20 to 25 minutes. So be looking in your cases for cuttings by Cambridge, and Mike will be leading that program. And the program in August is on August 12th. So be looking for the emails coming out announcing that program. So Julie, that's all I've got this evening, and I'll turn it back to you for some closing thoughts.
All right. Well, thank you. And I think it's, I always get great pleasure in knowing that we're getting educated on this forum. And certainly I think that, when we see people like Brian that's gone out, has discovered now a new love in a candelabra because he found something new and something exciting here. I think it really goes to show how informative we are here at Zoom. But more importantly, I think we always have to take away from it. It's so nice to see everyone. It's a way that we can, share what we have, share the knowledge, share our glass, but also just have the social part of this as well. And for those of you that did miss convention, we did miss you. But I also find that in between our sessions at Zoom, I always think about everyone that attends Zoom. So again, we wouldn't have this program month after month if we didn't have you joining us. And so I really thank everyone that, even though, we were just at convention, you could have said, I don't want to go to Zoom tonight, but we all come because we find it fascinating to learn about glass, but we just also enjoy one another's company and sharing what we have. So with that, I thank everyone. I look forward to seeing you all next month. And until then, enjoy the rest of your summer and stay cool if you're out in, Phoenix and those areas, and we'll see you in a month. So take care, everyone.